We're talking all things rock.
Every genre, every band.
Stuff that's actually factual and real.
Trunk Nation.
With Eddie Trunk.
I feel reconnected now.
Sirius XM. Faction Talk.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Eddie Trunk, and welcome to a Thursday edition of Trunk Nation here on Faction Talk 103, and, of course, the Sirius XM app. Hope you guys are having a good Thursday. I am in Boston getting ready to host the Ultimate Shredder tonight for the Music Drives Us charity at the Lansdowne Pub. I'll be joined by Tommy Henriksen and Ryan Roxy of the Alice Cooper Band. By the way, speaking of Alice, you're going to hear from him later in today's Trunk Nation, so good timing on that. We have a bit of a mixed bag for you here on this Thursday show. Now, tomorrow, we've got a great show for you that will feature some great interview content with Joe Satriani and Steve Vai. It's a brand new interview I did with Satch and Vai together, talking about their band together, their new music together, and we will world premiere a brand new Satch Vai song in tomorrow's show to end the program. In addition to that, some mailbag, because it is Friday, so we'll work in a little free-for-all Friday action as well via the emails. That's on an all-new Trunk Nation tomorrow. Satch Vai interview, Satch Vai music world premiere, and some of your mailbag questions and comments as well, all to wrap up the week tomorrow on Trunk Nation. Today, we have a bit of a hybrid show for you. I'm going to bring you a brand new interview that I just did, never heard before, and we're going to end with a portion of an interview that was done back in November with Alice Cooper as an encore in today's show. And the reason we're doing that is because just last week, you heard from Criss Angel on this show, the legendary magician. And Chris was on to talk about this show that he's doing with Alice Cooper, where he is incorporating magic and magic effects around Alice performing a full rock show. That's taking place in Vegas at Criss Angel's Theater in Planet Hollywood, and it kicks off on March 6th, a limited engagement that goes for the next few months, scattered dates. So with that being so close to happening, and with Chris having just been on the air talking with us about it, I thought we'd go back to the interview I did with Alice back in November, where he not only talks about his new record, but he also talks about some other stuff and this show that is now about to premiere, bringing magic and rock together with Criss Angel in Vegas, kicking off on March 6th. So we'll hear from the legendary, one and only Alice Cooper coming up later in the program. But coming up in minutes, a brand new interview premiering for the first time anywhere right here on Trunk Nation. And it's a little left of center from what we normally do, but I kind of like doing this every once in a while. It's with John Taylor. John Taylor, of course, the bass player, best known for being the bass player in Duran Duran. And, of course, an original member of that band, still a current member of that band. But in this interview, we touch on Duran Duran, but we also speak to him about the 40th anniversary of a more rock project that he did, the Power Station. If you remember the Power Station album, which came out back in, I believe, 85, that was a whole different trip for John Taylor and Andy Taylor of Duran Duran. They coupled with vocalist Robert Palmer and drummer Tony Thompson and made a powerhouse rock record that ended up having a couple of big hits on it. With Get It On, Bang a Gong, the T-Rex cover, and Some Like It Hot. It was all over MTV back in the day. And really great record. I love the playing. I love the drumming on that record. And I was surprised to hear that it recently turned 40 years old, and they put out a special edition of the album to celebrate it being 40. So I was able to connect with John Taylor through our mutual friend and, of course, Sirius XM host Lori Majewski. So thanks, Lori, for this connection. Saw Lori. I saw Duran Duran recently. Lori was there. We saw each other there. She's a huge Duran fan, as many know. And she connected me to get John Taylor on this show. And it was a great conversation. I was so happy we were able to get done. There is video of it as well. That'll go up on the YouTube channel soon. So, by the way, I do talk to John Taylor about the Neurotic Outsiders. For those that don't remember that band, that featured Steve Jones of the Sex Pistols, Matt Sorum, Duff McKagan, and yep, I do get something in on that as well. So, John Taylor to start today, and then we'll come back and we'll wrap it up with an encore of a recent interview with the legendary Alice Cooper. So, predominantly new, but a little archival interview thrown on the end on this Thursday edition of Trunk Nation. With that being said, we're going to get a quick break right out of the way here at the top of the show, and we're going to come back and spend almost an hour with John Taylor of Duran Duran and Power Station right after this.
You're listening
To Trunk Nation.
with Eddie Trunk. Just the thought of being interviewed by Eddie Trunk has inspired and fueled the dreams of countless musicians.
Trunk Nation. Sirius XM's Faction Talk.
The Bonfire with Big J. Okerson and Robert Kelly.
Buddy, I wore a leather jacket in Killbox. It was the worst decision I've ever made.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Thank God I couldn't zip it.
You're a cow.
I couldn't. Someone was like, you should zip that, baby. I go, dude, I can't.
At least somebody had to cut that off of you to make a leather jacket.
The Bonfire. Weeknights at 5 p.m. Eastern on Faction Talk or anytime on the Sirius XM app.
MLB Network Radio on Sirius XM gets you ready for opening day with a tour of spring training.
The amount of young talent is phenomenal.
Hear interviews with all-stars.
This is Mookie Betts.
I'm Aaron Judge. And insight and analysis of all 30 clubs.
There's nothing wrong with having teams at the top of the sport that you're trying to take down.
Talk baseball with our experts on Channel 89 in the car. And listen to your favorite team's spring training show anytime on the Sirius XM app.
Hey, I'm Mike Slater. My dad passed away at the age of 63. He was in great health. Was out of nowhere, had a stroke. And super hard, obviously, for the whole family, but my dad had life insurance. So even after he passed away, he was still able to provide for my mom. And of course, by extension, my brother and I. This is why I have life insurance for my family, for my wife and 4 kids. And the best place to get life insurance is ethos.com. Because you can do it in 10 minutes. And there's no medical exam and no blood test. Just a few health questions. 10 minutes. You're covered. Your family is covered. You can get $2 million in coverage for $2 a day. That's a 10-year term life policy for a 35-year-old healthy, non-smoking male. We don't like to talk about death in our culture, but everyone's going to die. You are going to die. Get life insurance in 10 minutes so your family is protected. Ethos, E-T-H-O-S, ethos.com/rate. Rates may vary, billed monthly. Ethos.com/rate.
500 orders a month was manageable. 5,000 is madness. Embrace intelligent order fulfillment with ShipStation, the only platform combining order management, warehouse workflows, inventory, returns, and analytics in one place. What used to take 5 separate tools, ShipStation does in one. Automate fulfillment and red shopping to ship up to 15 times more with up to 90% savings. Scale like over 1 million others. Go to ShipStation.com/SiriusXM to try ShipStation free for 60 days.
Hennion and Walsh was made for people like you. People who value speaking to the right people at the right time. That's why we answer the phone ourselves, to understand you and help you invest for the life you want, because you've earned it. We're Hennion and Walsh, and a human connection. Get a second opinion. Call 800-279-5279 or find us online. Investing involves risk, including the possible loss of principal. Advisory services provided by Hennion & Walsh Asset Management. Securities offered by Hennion & Walsh Inc. Member FINRA SIPC.
These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
If you have oxalate crystal stones, tea time is not your cup of tea. That has changed. The makers of Kidney Cop introduce Veloxa Very Low Oxalate Teas. Teas that are high in flavor, but low in oxalates. Veloxa's delicious proprietary tea blends are scientifically tested to ensure low oxalate levels so you can take back tea time. That's Veloxa, VELOXA, Very Low Oxalate Teas on Amazon.com, Walmart.com, or KidneyCop.com.
Hey, John, why so glum?
I just got let go. The company's downsizing. This is the 3rd time in the last 2 years.
I'm done with this.
Have you thought about My Computer Career? I've heard they can train you for a career in IT in just a few months, including cybersecurity and the basics of AI. And you don't need prior training or experience. Now that's a recession-resistant career.
Wow, thanks. I'll check them out.
Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation. mycomputercareer.edu, an Elite CompTIA certification partner. Financial aid is available to those who qualify, including VA benefits.
Now, more talk that rocks.
Great for the bands and great for the audiences.
Trunk Nation with Eddie Trunk.
Doing God's work, man. Thank you very much.
Faction Talk.
Welcome back to Trunk Nation, this Thursday edition. Without further ado, my interview that I just did a couple weeks ago. For the first time ever, John Taylor of Duran Duran and the Power Station. Enjoy. Eddie Trunk here on Trunk Nation on Faction Talk 103 here on Sirius XM, and I'm very excited to speak to this guy. I just had a chance to see him in action with his band Duran Duran in Vegas, a phenomenal show, which we'll talk to in a second, but I really want to talk to him today about a record that I absolutely love that just came out in a special edition, and that is the Power Station album, and joining me now is John Taylor. John, how are you? Good to see you and talk to you.
Hey, Eddie. Hi, Eddie. Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Yeah. Are you in England now?
I am. Cold, rainy. There's no place like home.
You lived in LA for a while too, right? Or you lived in the US for a bit, right?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, we moved out of LA last year, actually. I mean, we've been there for 30 years. And this is my first winter back in the old country. And I'd said to my wife, because she was the one, she really wanted to, do the English thing. And I said, well, I've got to tell you, like January, February, March is brutal. But weather, it's not going to kill you, is it? Is it?
No, I don't. Well, I'm not quite sure. I'm from New Jersey, and there's like feet of snow there right now, and super cold. That's why I'm in Las Vegas right now, John, because it's sunny and 70 outside. So I'll take it. So I was amazed, man, when I realized that the Power Station album was over 40 years old when I heard about this special edition. I love this record, and honestly, I really like Duran Duran and love the songs. And I just came to see you recently, and it was phenomenal. I want to talk about that in a minute, but I'm more of a rock guitar, hard rock guy, and so is my audience. And when Power Station came out, I was floored by that record and a lot of aspects of it, which we'll get into, but. Was it really, because I looked at it at the time as a way for maybe yourself and Andy to kind of scratch a little bit more of a guitar-based hard rock itch. Was that kind of the idea at the time you made it?
Yes. We'd been making the third Duran Duran album. We were under a lot of pressure. We were second guessing, triple guessing, quadruple guessing, every chord, every lick, and it was just we were just kind of worn out, and we just wanted to do something that was a bit more from the gut, really. And of course, we had no idea what that was going to be. We'd met Tony Thompson. We met Tony and Niall together in New Jersey at the Meadowlands, in fact, when Duran opened for Blondie in 82. And Niall showed up with Tony, and we'd been big fans of theirs. So we had this moment, it was like bros, a lot of backslapping, a lot of, and we just became friends, really. And I started seeing, we saw Niall quite a lot, but Tony we didn't see again until the Serious Moonlight tour. He was playing with Bowie on the Serious Moonlight tour, and we, only in the 80s, we went to see the show in the south of France, which was where we were working, and we went out with Tony after the show and said, "Man, we got to do something together." Blah blah blah. Yeah, I try explaining to people. It's hard to understand, but back then, and we're talking early 80s here, it's like this drummer was a star. Tony Thompson was responsible for some of the coolest breaks in dance music. You could go to a club, you go to any club anywhere, and at some point you'd hear a Tony Thompson drum break. And we'd be like, oh, man, you know, Tony is like... So Andy and me really hit Tony with like, yeah, let's do a record together and you'll be the star. And Tony was like, I like the sound of that. So, you know, so the three of us got moving with music, and then Robert Palmer. I mean, you know, Robert again was, you know, I've been partying with Robert. We just liked each other. We liked hanging out together. And I think I played Robert one of the tracks that I'd done with Tony and Andy, and he wrote a lyric on a cigarette packet in like 10 minutes. And he came in to sing that, which was the song Communication. And then he wanted to have a go at this T-Rex song that we'd done, and voila, we had another band.
Because the idea, John, initially, if I have this right, was that you were going to use rotating singers on this. There would maybe be a different singer on every track. Yeah. That was the initial plan, right?
Well, we had a band. You know, we had a band. We weren't really looking to be in another band. We just wanted sort of freedom to make music under a different umbrella. And you know, so it seemed easier to think in terms of, well, there was that girl that sang backing vocals on that song, and there was that guy that, you know, that we could do, you know, that was the thinking. And we started the recording process with that in mind. But as I said, Robert sang 2 songs in one evening, and Bernard Edwards, the producer, said, "You've got your singer. This is it." And the album was actually recorded very quickly. There was, I mean, you know, it just, it built itself. You know, it was like magic. I think the force of the individuals involved with it, you know, it was like everybody was kind of courting. It was like we were all speed dating. You know, we all kind of fell in love with each other in like a 3-month period, and everybody was just giving it their all, you know, and this was some hot talent, you know, and everybody there was very little second guessing, you know, and we kind of had this album, and it was like, wow, it's like we baked this cake. I remember we called the record label. Andy and I were not getting along with our management. So we were kind of, one of the things, we were kind of doing it outside of the Duran management situation. And we just called a couple of the guys at Capitol Records and said, listen, we've been making this record, you know, do you want to come up to New York and have a listen to it? So like 3 of them showed up in the studio. I mean, you know, they were never the same again, you know, and they would sign Robert Palmer like 2 years later. I mean, it's like stuff like that just doesn't happen, you know, or I should say it happens so rarely that it's, yeah, I mean, somebody said to me the other day, it's lightning in a bottle stuff, you know?
Yeah, I would imagine, you know, I worked in a record store when Seven and the Ragged Tiger came out and Rio was out and all of that. And I tell my audience all the time, if you're not old enough to have lived that, the mania around Duran Duran around the world, but certainly here in the U.S. at that time, was just beyond belief. Anything we put out, whether it was a button, a poster, or whatever you guys put out, it just sold in droves. Yeah. It was incredible. So I would imagine that the label Capitol, knowing that 2 members of Duran Duran are doing another band or another project, I would imagine it was probably met with some excitement, because they knew they could probably sell it immediately just because it's 2 guys from Duran Duran. But was there any apprehension about, well, wait a minute, what are you guys doing? You know, you leaving the mothership? Is there some problem here?
Well, you know, to your point about, you know, people in the business that liked Duran, but when they heard this, they were like, whoa, you know, it was very hard hitting, you know, when it came out. And I think it's an interesting sound world. I've tried to, it's been really fun to listen to it all again, and all the sessions and the mixes, and really sort of trying to define it. I remember Tony telling Andy and me that John Bonham was his favorite drummer. And that was a real surprise to me. I didn't get that at all, because I was just used to, hearing Tony as like this very physical disco drummer, essentially, But like when you got in the studio with him and he started, it started to make sense. And then when he's playing with more riffing, rock guitar style, then it started to make more sense. But the other thing that I really love on the record is the horn arrangements. And you just don't hear, there's nothing else. I can't think of anything else like it. When you listen to the architecture of Some Like It Hot, it's just not quite like anything else. And I'm really proud of that, because it's unusual to be able to pull something off that is both, radical, but then it feels really comfortable and it feels familiar.
Yeah, I'm glad that you've spent a lot of time already talking about Tony Thompson, because with all respect to everybody that was a part of this record, to me, this thing is really, he is the foundation of this thing in a huge way. And I'm a big fan of drums and drum sounds. And growing up into hard rock music, I was not aware that Tony Thompson could play like this, or really even aware that he had this style to him. So when I heard these songs, and sonically, the sound of the drums and what was going on, I was absolutely floored. And I just listened to the new remaster. And for folks listening, one of the reasons we're talking about this is there's a new edition of this record that's come out that's remastered with a bunch of extra content. But it just floored me. And John, just listening to it again the other day, I'm just listening to the drums and listening to the pocket and what this guy's doing around what you guys are doing. And I'm like, my mind is blown, and it's obviously tragic that we lost him a number of years ago. But like you said, I'm imagining that, especially you being a bass player and having to lock in with him, it had to be quite a revelation to start laying this stuff down.
Wow. Without getting too muso-y, obviously rhythm sections are this very symbiotic relationship. The drummer looks to the bass player looks to the drummer, and you're building this base, this foundation that everybody else can do their thing on top of. And every great band has a rhythm section. And, Roger Taylor and I really learned to play bass with Roger in Duran, and we would spend hours and hours really working fills. And, we thought we got something different. When I got to play with Tony, wow. He was like a racehorse. You just had to hang on. Or I had to hang on for dear life. His rhythm section partner was Bernard. Bernard was the bassist in Chic, and Bernard was really, really anchored Tony, kept him on time, kept him sort of, if it was, Tony constantly needed to be like brought within the boundaries, and Bernard, it was like I was playing with Tony, but Bernard had his eyes on Tony. So Bernard was like, Tony was in a way looking past me to Bernard in the control room. And honestly, he was almost too much for me. It's interesting that there's a live concert with the CD box. There's a 4 CD set, and soon to be released triple vinyl of the show that we did in Philadelphia. Now, what the Power Station story is that the band, for it is now a band, decides to do some shows in the summer of '84. And we put a bunch of shows on sale. Like he was saying earlier, it's Duran Mania. The shows sell out like overnight. there's a lot of excitement around the shows. Robert Palmer pulls out of the tour for reasons known best to him. And, and Andy and I are like, well, what the hell are we going to do? And, what we're not going to do is cancel the tour because it's already looking like way too much fun to cancel it. So we just go back to the original remit, which is like, well, we're going to have different singers. So we get introduced to a guy called Michael DeBar, who, you may know. I mean, I was aware of Silverhead, who were this glam rock band that he was the frontman of in the 70s that had a lot of attention but didn't quite make it. He was in a band called Detective, who had signed to Led Zeppelin's label, Swan Song. So he had this kind of credibility, but it was also like he hadn't quite made it. This dude was on a plane to New York within 24 hours of getting the call. He had all the songs mastered on the first day of rehearsal. If you closed your eyes, it could be Robert. I mean, he really had that sort of English blue-eyed soul thing down. And so, we took it on tour. Well, that was really where I got to play with Tony, like every day, sound checks, rehearsals, and the shows. Man, I mean, it was just, you just really had to hold on tight. There's very few bass players that have Carmine Rojas, who plays with Bowie. There's me and there's Bernard. There's very few of us that have actually survived. It's like we need t-shirts. We survived Tony. You just wouldn't know what he was going to do. He was a phenomenal musician.
Yeah, and the drum sound is just unbelievable. Whether it's Bernard, and I know Jason Corsaro, who mixed the record.
Jason.
The engineering of it, it's just, that just ties in with the whole Bonham thing.
Definitely.
Because it's not only that pocket, but it's also that sound is just unreal. Yeah. And there's some really cool production stuff on the record too. Like even some of the intros, like stuff that to me sounded kind of ahead of its time. Like the beginning of Some Like It Hot and just the way you went into Bang a Gong. Yeah. It was really kind of, was that coming from Bernard?
That was Jason. Jason was Jason putting the whole mix into a sampler, an Eventide harmonizer, and you could actually like play the dun 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 dun. It was pre-sampling, and Jason also, his contribution cannot be underestimated. I mean, these were guys that were absolutely at the top of their game. It is a testament to their talent. I mean, Andy and we're the last ones standing on this project. And Michael, of course. So you have a sense of legacy. It's a little bit weird actually talking about the project, and I've done a few interviews about it, and of course we are talking for the most part about guys that aren't with us anymore, and it's so I feel, I don't like this term blessed, but I do feel extremely sort of privileged and fortunate to have gotten to make this record with these guys. I love my Duran guys, and we've had an extraordinary career, but there was something really remarkable about that season that we spent making the Power Station.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that the music holds up remarkably well. And speaking of Michael DeBar, who came in and did the live shows, I know Michael very well. I was a fan of Detective and knew some of his stuff. He actually does radio with us here on Sirius XM now. And and we've talked about this to some degree. But the other guy I want to ask you about in making this record is your Duran bandmate, Andy Taylor, because when I heard, there was also a bit of a revelation for me hearing this, because certainly his guitar playing in Duran Duran and throughout those records is spot on, brilliantly perfect for those songs and for what you're doing. But this, to me, was a chance where it sounded like it gave Andy a chance to really open up and play a little bit more. And of course, we're talking mid-'80s. What's going on in rock is the Guitar Hero and the height of Eddie Van Halen and all of that.
Yeah.
Was this a chance for him, I imagine? Because then he would go on to do a record called Thunder that I liked a lot.
Yeah.
Was this a chance for him to maybe showcase maybe a different side of his playing as well with Power Station?
Yes, definitely. I mean, I think Andy was a little bit frustrated in that the architecture of Duran Duran meant that he had to kind of pare back his what he had to offer. It didn't really matter how good he was. You'd still have to, I mean, listen, he when he was economical on a song like Hungry Like the Wolf, for example, or The Reflex, I mean, he was amazing. I mean, what I love about Andy, and I still don't know anybody that does it better, he could do these Nile Rodgers, Steve Cropper, choppy grooves, but he could do the Angus Young stuff as well, and there's very few guitar players that can do that. I think the guys that typically work up their style so they can get the heavy rock stuff down. They don't take that clean shit seriously. They don't, and that is as powerful in its own way. Andy was always the master of both styles, and that's what he gave Duran. With this, I think he just, the hair got longer, there was just like more product. It was just more. I mean, his playing on the live album is crazy. It's beyond. I talked to him recently. I said, "Can you fucking believe what we were doing? It's insane." But it was just that moment, and it's like, I don't know. I mean, there's something when you have the kind of success that we were having with Duran Duran. There's a window where you can get this pass, and you can kind of do anything you want, and people will underwrite it. You want to do a shoe deal with Adidas, they'll do it. You want to make a film with Martin Scorsese, he'll do it. We wanted to go and do another project, music project, and they underwrote it. We got it underwritten, and it sort of magicked itself into being. And it also had a very, we did the tour. By the end of the tour, I thought, okay, if I'm going to be in a band, it's going to be Duran Duran. So I kind of went back. Andy didn't, so we had to kind of build Duran Duran back after this. It's an interesting, there was a second Power Station album like 20 years later, but that's another story. I mean, check Andy out on the live. You won't believe it. His hair's on fire.
Yeah,
it'll set your hair on fire.
Yeah, and maybe in a way, John, when you think about it, because when you look at what Duran Duran is now, and I just saw the band, and again, I thought it was a phenomenal show. But what's happened with the band and the catalog, and what you guys are doing live, which is just incredible. You maybe sometimes you see bands that have that arc like you guys had, where you came out and you just became so enormous that there's almost like some sort of pause in there is almost a healthy thing. That rebuild probably is almost a healthy thing for the longevity of the band. Do you agree with that it was almost needed for everybody?
I do. And you know what? There was a lot of egos, and I could say egos out of control. And I could say that that's a part of what Power Station was about also. But it certainly wasn't the case for Robert, and it wasn't the case for Bernard, and it certainly wasn't the case for Tony. I mean, Andy and I were really lucky that these guys just sort of showed up. They got on the train. You know, we were like these pop kids, and they didn't really know what we were capable of. And they were like, okay, these guys want to have a party. Well, let's go and see how it is. You know, it felt we got to work. I mean, I did. I got to work something out that I needed to work out. You know, there's something about this. It was a very intense few years from Duran. With Duran, we had a lot of success very, very quickly. We spent an enormous amount of time together, and you know, we did need to press pause. And it's nice actually now to be able to look at it and go, it was exactly what was meant to be. Yeah, I can see it within the curve, the arc of Duran's career. I can see it within the arc of Robert Palmer's career. You know, I want to get Robert in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. What do you think about that, Eddie?
I think it's completely deserved. Absolutely. Yeah. And I have a vote. So if we can get him on the ballot, you've got my vote for sure. Yeah. I think it's extremely deserved because, again, of course, coming off of the Power Station, he went on to have a tremendous career here in the U.S. with a bunch of recordings as well. Some stuff that was actually, I think, similar sounding to a vibe of what Power Station would have done, you know, sonically, certainly.
Yeah.
You know, just a couple other things with you, John. I appreciate the time. I don't want to keep you too long, but I'm just so interested in this. So here in the U.S., which I'm sure you're aware of, when it comes to T-Rex and Mark Bolan's catalog, in America, he's known for one song, and that's it. And that's Get It On, Bang a Gong. That's the only song anybody in this country knows from T-Rex and Mark Bolan. I know the catalog, and I know in England it's a whole different story. There's a dozen hit singles and all of that. So I'm curious, when you looked, being that you're British and you look at and you see T-Rex in a different way there, when you looked at the catalog trying to determine if you were going to do a T-Rex song, why did you go to Bang a Gong, Get It On? Because it was known in America, or just because you liked that song and that was the one that worked?
Well, I wasn't looking at the T-Rex catalog. It was that song. And I don't know, really. I don't know why I thought, I loved T-Rex, but I loved that song. And I don't know really why I thought there could be like a big, fat, brassy, you know, New York version of it. I don't know. I mean, you know, just to dig back into the story, if you're not familiar with it, I was dating this gal, Bibi Buell. She was, well, I don't know how to describe her. She was kind of an extraordinary kind of scenester. She dated she had a daughter with Steven Tyler, and she and I were going together for a while, and she'd made a record with Rick Ocasek. And I thought, you know what I want to do? I'm going to do a record with Bibi, you know, and I think she should sing Get It On. And that really was the impetus for that. I took that idea, again, the kind of idea that you can really only get moving, you know, when you're super successful. But I took that idea to Andy and the record label, and they said, sure, okay, John, that's what you want to do. And then cut to, we fell out. And then, you know, but Andy and I were still like, no, you know, let's do Get It On. And I think Andy loved it because it's just one of the great riff songs of all time. You know, there's a great performance of that song on Top of the Pops, actually, which you can see on YouTube. And Elton John's playing piano, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and of course, Elton loved T-Rex and even was on, I think, Children of the Revolution, if I'm not mistaken. He played piano on the original recording of that, so there's some history there as well. And lastly, on Power Station, it sounds like to you, when this cycle was done, despite the album being extremely successful, 2 big singles and videos on MTV, Michael comes in, you do the live shows. It sounds like that you were pretty okay with it kind of being one and done at the time. Do I have that right? Or would you have liked it to continue and, you know, there be 6 Power Station records?
No, No, we went back into the studio after the tour and we cut a song for this Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, and that song, Somewhere Somehow Someone's Gotta Pay, is on the reissue. It's actually pretty cool. But we were in the studio in Los Angeles, and I just thought, no, I'm not feeling this. And, you know, I don't know. I think I almost burnt out, to be honest. I think, you know, just two bands, it was just too much. And I think like maybe a month later, you know, Nick and I got together in New York, and, you know, it was just time to put the mothership back together. You know, it all sounds very Spinal Tap, but, you know, that's how it is sometimes. You know, it's band dynamics in bands, you know, and musicians, young musicians particularly, you know, that find themselves out on that road and everything that's going on. You know, they're crazy times, and sometimes you make very impulsive, very emotional decisions. And you know, I mean, how many bands have we seen that clearly broke up prematurely? You know, I mean, you watch that Beatles documentary, you know, the Peter Jackson documentary, and you're just watching it, and John's talking about, you know, yeah, we're going to meet with this lawyer, Alan Klein, and he's trying to convince George, you know, and he's telling George, yeah, I think he's going to be really good. And you just want to yell, no, don't do it. Because, you know, it's going to lead to their demise, you know. And I mean, look, everything is exactly as it's meant to be. But, you know, there are a lot of bands, I think, that could have given more. I'm a band guy, you know. I love the collaborative nature of musicians when they are on an equal footing and they bring that kind of democratic thinking to creating music. And but it's hard. It's really challenging. And, you know, and I think, you know, a lot of bands just throw in the towel a little bit, you know, when maybe just that one last therapy session might have made the difference.
And it was a different time too, because I say this all the time. You know, I've been in the business over 40 years at this point, so I lived through all this from what I do. And in the 80s, now it's the norm. It's almost unheard of if you have somebody in a band that does not have at least one other band, one other side project. It's almost the norm now with every band at every level. Back in the 80s, it wasn't so much like that. I think it was looked at as like, oh, there's problems in the mothership if somebody's doing something. It was a warning shot to the fan base. You know, it was a bit different.
Right. Well, you know, it's a bit prog rock, really, isn't it? And it's the supergroup concept, you know, and that went out with the Clash and the Pistols, you know, and punk came along and the supergroup was like, you know, out. You know, we brought it back a little bit, didn't we?
Well, and that dovetails nicely into something I can't not ask you about, because you were in a band, a punk sort of supergroup about 10 years after this with a couple of good friends of mine in Matt Storm, who I just saw the other day, Duff, who, of course, Guns N' Roses, Steve Jones, Neurotic Outsiders. So you almost tried to do this whole sort of thing again 10 years later with a whole different group of guys, right?
Oh, my God, yeah. I mean, that was, you know, I mean, where that really came alive was on stage. You know, the Power Station was very much a studio invention, but the Neurotic Outsider story was all about this Monday nights at the Viper Room on Sunset, you know, and it was like, it was so much fun. You know, it was, I mean, kids couldn't believe what they were seeing on stage. And, you know, we had a lot of guests come, Billy Idol, Brian Setzer, Iggy Pop, Sporty Spice.
Of course.
And you know, and it was just balls to the wall, you know. Yeah, I mean that was absolutely brilliant, and that came at a time where I needed a little talk about therapy. I mean that was musical therapy, you know. I mean I didn't really know Duff and Matt, but man, did I love playing with them. I mean Matt is one of the great. I talk about great drummers. I mean, oh my God, I mean Matt is phenomenal, and you know, I mean he has all the power that Tony has, but his time is just phenomenal. And of course, Steve Jones is just one of the most underrated. I've always said he's England's Chuck Berry. There's just nobody like him. When you're on stage with Steve, you just have to get in with Steve. He is the boss, and but it's so much fun because nobody plays like that. You know, it's just everybody's on eighth, and you surrender to it. You know, forget those forget the funk. It's just, you know, it's this punk, and that was so much fun. And
of course Duff played guitar. You stayed on bass, and Duff played guitar in that and sang. So that was a bit of a change too.
Totally.
Did you like the record? You guys, for people that don't know, this band made a record. Did you like the record? Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. There's a better record, and we actually recorded. It's one of my. You know, there's a live recording from one of the last Viper Room shows that we did, and Billy's on it, Slash is on it, and in hindsight, I would have put that out as the record. Yeah, I mean, listen, you got to have it. But do you? Yeah, but you know, it was like the other way. That Neurotic Outsiders almost didn't need to make a record. Power Station was a record that almost didn't really need to go on tour. Neurotic Outsiders was like the ultimate club band. It was the ultimate Sunset Strip band. You know, it was a lot of fun.
You know, just a couple more quick things. I promise I'll let you go. I just saw you play, as I mentioned, here in Vegas just a couple weeks ago with Duran Duran. And I absolutely loved it. And I love the fact, I mean, Simon still sounds unbelievable. The band sounds incredible. I love the fact that you do everything live. You had a horn section come out. It's a real live band. There's unfortunately some of that's going away, and it's a big peeve of mine. So I absolutely loved what you did and the songs and all of that. The audience, I know you're coming back. They just announced coming back to Vegas here for a run, same venue in May. But there was something that I noticed in the show, and I'm not a musician, but I have to ask you about this. Your bass had the frets going different ways. You know, I've been to going to shows my whole life, and I've seen, you know, for people that don't understand what I'm talking about, frets are up and down on the neck of a guitar. Yours kind of fanned out, and I've never seen that before. So what is that? Is that a unique thing to you, or what's the sort of playing is that?
No, Sheldon Dingwall, who makes my guitars, he's a Canadian bass maker, designer. He picked up the design. I don't think he invented it, but he's the one that popularized it. I think he calls it a fantail. And it's just, I mean, I don't have super big hands. It just helps you a little bit. It's, you know, you kind of, it's very intuitive actually when you start fingering, when you start playing it, and what it makes your left hand do. It's, you know, I don't know how to describe it really. I mean, I fell in love. I saw the basses. I was up in Toronto and I saw them and I was like, oh my God, I love those. And he sent me one and I didn't even know. I was like, whoa, that's weird. But you just, once you, actually, I was going to say, once you played them, it's hard to go back, but it's actually not true. I play straight fretted basses all the time. You know, they're beautiful basses. And, you know, he did something really clever. He went to the company that had built the studio equipment that we recorded Rio on, and he got the designers to sort of create these EQ systems that he then put into the bass. So it's like, it's like a Rio thing. And so he and I have been, doing things together for a few years now, and I really enjoy playing them.
And as far as Duran Duran, the other thing that I loved about the band, and I think this gets overlooked to some degree, is there's so few bands from your era where you have 4 of the 5 original members. Andy's not playing with you currently, but I mean, that's unheard of to have that much of the original band intact. It speaks to the chemistry of the band. It speaks to the connection in the band. Can you, and we've brought up Andy, of course, a number of times in context to Power Station. How is he these days?
Yeah, he's good. I mean, he's as good as he can be, as a guy who's, fighting the illness that he has. The treatment has been, he's had a lot of treatment over the last couple of years. And, I talked to him about 3 months ago, and we talked about his treatment, and then we started talking about other things. And by the end of the conversation, I wouldn't have even thought he was going through anything. He just sounded like, the same old Andy. He's a resilient little fucker, and, and he's got a beautiful family, so he's highly motivated, to make it, as long as he can.
Well, we're all pulling for him and hoping for the best.
Yeah.
And the future for Duran Duran in 26 is live shows, basically, music coming. What can fans look forward to?
Well, there's a new song coming, Free to Love, that we did with Niall. We just did a video for that in London. I think fans are going to love it. We've got these shows back to Vegas, but also this show in Redondo Beach at the beginning of May. And we're looking at, I think we're going to do something in Europe in the summer. And we've been doing this Halloween. We've done it 3 years in a row now. We've kind of built this Halloween show. It started in Vegas, actually, about 3 years ago, and it's just gotten bigger every year. And I think we're going to do that again this year. So, there's a lot of things going on. I mean, fortunately, we've all got the same appetite for work. I mean, you talk about, there's still 4 of us, from the original 5. I think the thing that keeps us together is that we've all got about the same appetite. It's not like one guy wants to work, every day of the year and somebody else doesn't want to work at all. We all kind of, we all have the same appetite. So at the end of the day, we don't all agree on everything, but, we agree on enough that the train keeps rolling. And, I find that sometimes I'll argue again, I'll have a feeling about something in particular, and I'll fight for it, and I won't get my way. And 6 months later, I'm like, wow, I'm really glad it worked out that way. You never know, you never know how things are going to go. But it's, we've been extraordinarily lucky, really. I don't think any of us felt that we would have had anything like the career that we've had. I mean, who thinks like that? We're like punks, and we wanted to be in a band because it looked like fun. You don't think like 40 years later you're still going to be playing and having as good a time. I mean, that's the interesting thing. It's like, when you're a kid and and you go off on the road and you're in the studio all night, and you just, it's kind of madness, really. And it can be quite a lot to cope with. As you get older and you start making adult decisions, adult choices about what you can and can't do, it gets easier, and actually, like, the playing it becomes more and more significant somehow. And I don't think I've ever enjoyed playing as much as I'm enjoying now. It's just it's just great. And and everybody's playing playing well, and the audiences. There's something about live music right now, my man. You know, the world that we're living in right now, it's like people need to be able to get together under a roof and have a good time together, you know? And regardless of where you're from or what you're into or whatever, you know, we need to, you know, and music is one of the few places that we can go. It's one of the few churches, you know, that you can go to and you can just have a good time, you know, and be reminded of why you like other people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And I'll tell you, you talk about the fun you're having on stage, having been in that audience, that comes off the stage. You connect with that. You can see the smiles on everybody's face in that band, that you guys are having fun. And then the people in that audience, as you can see from the stage, you're playing to multiple generations now. You're bringing, you're bringing to people who are bringing their kids who grew up watching you on MTV, and then they're bringing their kids to see this band that I loved. And most importantly, John, the music holds up. I mean, great songs are great songs, and you could have all the big MTV videos and all the big success or image or whatever, but if the music doesn't endure and stand the test of time, it doesn't mean anything. And I think that's what's remarkable about Duran Duran. Those songs are timeless. I mean, you guys made timeless music that still resonates today.
That's great. I appreciate that.
Yeah, man.
Thank you.
Well, it's great to spend some time with you. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on, and hope to see you when you're back here in Vegas in May. And May is the next round.
Look me up.
I will. I'd love to say hello. It's great to finally connect with you. Please come on anytime you want to check in and say hello to the audience. It's always a pleasure to have you, and thank you again for the time today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care,
Cheers.
John.
Thanks, Eddie.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
You got it.
Bye-bye.
See ya. There he goes. John Taylor, everybody. Just a good 45, 50 minutes with him, and what a great guy, man. It's so cool, like I say so often. It's very, very rare for me to interview and talk to people who have been around for a long time like he has, and I have, and I've never interviewed before. I've never spoken to him before. Not that I remember. You know, it's funny, now that I see him and just talk to him, because we did that on Zoom, so you'll be able to see the video for that at some point. But I'm trying to remember now, because you know, I was on TV for about 15 years, and we did a lot of stuff around Duran Duran. And, you know, I forget sometimes, as John Taylor just said, he lived in America for 30 years before he just moved back to England. So he very well may have seen me. I may have run into him somewhere down the line. You know, I remember, you know, hanging out in clubs and venues and stuff around that time, and, oh, there's this guy, and hey, how you doing? So it feels like I kind of met him at some point. But it's just, he's been doing this so long. I've been doing this so long. There may have been, but I certainly don't know him in the traditional sense. But I felt like I did, because he was such a good guy, and he's just so easygoing and so open, willing to talk about anything. And I'm telling you, for me, when I always liked Duran Duran because the songs are great, right? But as I've said countless times to you guys, I'm a hard rock guy. I make no reservations about that. So, you know, those weren't my bands per se. But working in a record store, as I did, at the height of Duran Duran mania, and when I tell you it was mania, it's crazy what went on with that band at that time. Like, anything they put out sold in droves. Posters, buttons, hats, T-shirts. Wasn't just the records. The records, you know, I remember that record 7 in the Ragged Tiger. We had sold it. It was selling so fast that we didn't even bother pricing the records individually and putting them in the bins. We just opened the box of albums, which was maybe 30 in a box, put a sign on it, whatever the price was, and put it on the counter, because everybody who came in was just buying one. So what didn't make sense to restock the section. At least every other person that walked in the door to the record store was coming in to buy the new Duran Duran record. So just put it out. I remember we got posters for that record. Couldn't sell them quick enough. You had to roll them up and put them a rubber band around. It's just boom, boom, boom. So it was like mania, and I heard those records nonstop. You couldn't avoid it. You heard it nonstop on MTV. You saw the videos everywhere. And you can't not like those songs. However, when Power Station came out, that's where it moved more into my turf. Now, make no mistake, Power Station obviously is not a metal record. But there are certainly hard rock elements about it. And when I heard Tony Thompson drums, and then I heard Andy Taylor opening up and playing a little bit more, I'm like, I knew these guys had this side in them. I knew this was itching to kind of come out a little bit. And it did come out a little bit on that record. But it was fairly short-lived, and as you just heard John say, they had to go back to the mothership because Duran Duran was a behemoth of a band. But it's a really interesting story, and this deluxe edition of the first Power Station album is out now. As John alluded to, there was a second Power Station record. I've never heard it. I don't think many have ever heard it. And the reason why I think John kind of brushed over it is he wasn't on it. He initially started out working on it and then abandoned it. And the bass on it, I believe, was played by Bernard Edwards. So he does not appear on the record. But they made an attempt at doing another one at another point. And I think a lot of people forget that, tying in more with the hard rock thing, then John Taylor went and did this band, Neurotic Outsiders, that he was a part of with Duff McKagan, Matt Sorum, and Steve Jones. Didn't sound like he was so high on the one record they made, but it was more of a live thing. And as he mentioned, everyone living in LA, and it was time of great excess. John Taylor himself had his problems with certain substances, as did, I'm sure, most of those guys in that band at that time. And it was really more of a jam thing that they ended up putting a record out, from at one point, which is out there now. Actually, the record came out on Maverick, if I recall, which was Madonna's label. Interesting guy, interesting story. And again, when it comes to Duran Duran, as I mentioned, 4 of the 5 original guys. The only reason why Andy Taylor doesn't currently tour with the band, if you don't know that story, Andy Taylor has cancer. He's been battling it for about 4 years now. I believe it started as prostate cancer, and he is still dealing with that. So we wish him well, and that's the reason why he's not in Duran Duran currently in terms of touring, because if he was, they would be all original members. And having just seen the band live, nothing but respect, because, man, they were bringing it totally live. And a band like that and a lot of bands from their era are not doing that. So I really respect that as well. Well, really enjoyed talking to John Taylor. And by the way, there is video of that entire conversation. I'll get it up for you on the YouTube channel in the coming days or weeks, so you could see that interview as well if you'd like. Big thanks to him. It was great to talk to him about Power Station, little Duran Duran in there. And
Hearts every Sunday at church now have their own Sirius XM channel.
Message worship. Songs that renew the soul, lighten the spirit, and fill the heart.
Message worship, channel 68 for a limited time.
And always in the Sirius XM app.
Maybe this is you too. There's enormous frustration right now with healthcare costs. It is amazing. Healthcare costs for families in the last 20 years have almost tripled, and it just keeps getting worse. All this to say, this is why MediShare is so in demand right now. People are looking for alternatives. And MediShare is proven you can save thousands of dollars a year and actually like it more. Over 1 million Americans are now part of healthcare sharing, and MediShare is the gold standard. It's trusted. It works. It's been helping people save money and have peace of mind now for 30 plus years.
It's not some big impersonal thing either. It's a community of people like you helping each other. So yeah, if you're frustrated too, here's your chance to make a refreshing change. You'll notice the difference as soon as you call. They're easy to talk to. You can get a price within 2 minutes. Here is the number. Call 833-39-BIBLE. That's 833-39-BIBLE. 833-39-BIBLE.
My name is Mark Fox. I'm the founder of Rizona Health. You've heard the drug commercials. They start by promising relief, and then they do something insane. They scare the hell out of you. Risk of stroke, heart attacks, permanent movement disorders, increased depression, thoughts of suicide. And they say it so fast and so calmly, we're expected just to accept it. But anxiety and stress aren't moral failures. They're often signs of a nervous system stuck in overdrive. So I asked a different question. Instead of suppressing the system, what if it helped it regulate itself? That's why we created Vibe. Vibe uses gentle, resonance-based frequency therapy to support your nervous system naturally. No drugs, no sedation, and no list of catastrophic side effects read at the end. Just a non-invasive way to help your body find balance again. If you're ready to question the idea that pills are the only answer, you can learn more at trashthepills.com. That's trashthepills.com. I'm Mark Fox, and this is Calm Without the Crazy.
Is the person who manages your Google ads the best? Here's who Google thinks is the best. Google thinks it's Search Kings. Of more than 10,000 Google agencies in the United States and Canada eligible for the honor, it is one company, Search Kings, that is the winner of the 2025 Google Ads Impact Award, given to the Google partner with the most impactful Google advertising results. You want to stand out where your customers are online? Switch to Search Kings.
I need to confess something. My friends think I'm the mastermind behind our golf trips. They thank me for the perfect courses, the hotels, the smooth planning, and I let them believe it. But the secret is, I don't plan any of it. Golf Breaks does. Their experts book the tee times, the rooms, the whole package. They find the best options and prices, and I just say yes and look like a hero. I should feel guilty, but I'm not stopping. Just don't tell my buddies. If you want a great golf trip without the work, go to golfbreaks.com and use code RADIO for up to $200 off your first golf trip.
Back to Trunk Nation.
Talking all things rock.
There it is right now. The hair's standing up.
With Eddie Trunk.
Faction Talk.
Welcome back, everybody. It's Eddie Trunk here on Trunk Nation. Don't forget, tomorrow, big exclusive, Joe Satriani and Steve Vai on together, and the world premiere of a brand new Satch Vai song called Dancin'. That is all on tomorrow's show. Still some more time left to go on this Thursday edition of Trunk Nation. And as promised, Alice Cooper from this past November. Alice talking about his upcoming shows with Chris Angel, his latest record, his latest band record with the Alice Cooper Band, and a whole lot more. Here is the legend, Alice Cooper, on Trunk Nation. Alice, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Eddie. We just finished 200 and some cities around the world, and I feel great. So I got a little time off, and between doing the album with the original guys and doing this tour, I've been staying pretty busy.
Well, I got so much to talk to you about because it's been. I've actually seen you a couple times, but on the air we haven't talked in a little bit. Right. Starting with the most recent touring you did, the most recent run was with Judas Priest. How did that all go?
That was so much fun. Rob and I are best friends, and we both live in Phoenix, which is really interesting. And last year we did it with Rob Zombie. Mm-hmm. We do all the outdoor venues, all the sheds, for a month. And was really a lot of fun because the guys in Priest and my guys get along just like brothers. And it was so much fun. It was the craziest thing. Generally, when you have two headliners doing a show like that, who goes on first, who goes on second? We just kind of flip-flopped all the time. And this was in the 70s. Everybody would have gone, we want to go on last, because everybody was vying to go on first.
Because get out of there early.
Yeah, because it was a 1-2 punch. It wasn't like one band was going to overpower the other. It didn't matter if they went on first and then we went on, or if we went on first and they went on, because it was both shows were so powerful that they weren't going to miss anything, And Corrosion of Conformity was also on the open for us, and they were great. Yeah, they were just really, really great. And but Rob and I got along. We had at one point we set up an entire British tea for them in the afternoon. and they got to the dressing room, and there was all the the scones and all the tea and everything. So they were that was just one of those little things you can do, that nobody else probably would have done for them.
Yeah, no doubt. It's funny that you say that, because as everybody gets older, myself included, you go to these festivals, and I've talked to artists on these festivals. As you know, with these festivals, some of them have like 100 bands in a day and all of that. Yeah. And I'll talk to the bands backstage, and they'll be like, man, we're trying to get that third from the top slot or that second. Nobody wants the last slot because everyone's so burnt out and everyone's getting older. It's like you don't want people starting to drift out because it's 11 o'clock and they sat through 50 bands already. You want to kind of be in that sweet spot in the middle.
Well, I was surprised when when they were at Woodstock. Jimi Hendrix went on at 6 a.m. I mean, you had to be pretty high or pretty something to get up all night to hear, Jimi Hendrix at 6 a.m. But at that point, time doesn't mean anything. When you've got the bands up there, it just doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah, totally. No, I realize I haven't spoken to you since, at least on the air, since the latest record came out. So I want to talk about The Revenge of Alice Cooper a little bit. But I'm curious because the original band back in the day, early 70s, I was too young to remember or know or to see that band and to know where you guys went. But did the original Alice Cooper band, when you were first starting out, did you tour a lot internationally? Did you go out of America often?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, that was the thing. I mean, the first two albums were with Frank Zappa. That was like Pretty's for You and Easy Action, which were more artsy albums. They weren't really designed for the radio. When you're working with Zappa, you weren't really thinking commercial success because he wasn't. When we got with Ezrin, Bob Ezrin, all of a sudden we had Love It to Death, Killer, School's Out, $1 Billion Babies, Muscle of Love. All those albums were platinum because it was a different way of doing it. That was all the original band. That was all the guys from high school. Glenn Buxton passed away. He was our lead guitar player, and he was certainly the guy that you could not replace. He was sort of our Syd Barrett. He didn't play like anybody else. He was totally different than anybody else. And but the original band, we were best friends from high school to this day. Even when the band broke up, we didn't break up with bad blood. We just kind of drifted apart, and but we always stayed in touch with each other. And that was, they played on, the Detroit album. They played on Paranormal. They played on all bunch of albums with me. And I finally just said, why don't we just do an album? Nobody will be expecting that. 53 years later, we do an album, and it went to #1 in 8 countries. It was like we accidentally made a really great 1975 album without trying to make a 1975 album.
Yeah, it's a great
play. Yeah,
it's a great record, and the label, which is in Germany, I believe, Max at the label, I was in touch with him, and he sent me a really cool special edition of it with all this box. The packaging was amazing on it. It sounded great, and I loved the vibe of it, and the fact that you guys all came together and did this. The songs were so good, and I don't know, maybe I'm crazy here, but when you work with the original guys like this, does your vocal style change a little bit? Do you sing a little differently? Because I picked up on that.
Yeah, it really does. I'm not kidding you. When I sing with the original band, my voice changes. I don't sing it like I would sing with my band. And it's not because I'm trying to change it. It just changes. And I can't explain it at all, but it's just the way they play. I try to make my voice fit what those songs are. Dennis always brings songs in, Neil brings songs in, Mike brings songs in, I have songs. And we would sit down, and there was not one moment of any argument, any kind of, we would sit there and just go, okay, let's try that. And then Ezrin would go, okay, well, that doesn't work, but this works. And it just flowed like that. And we found a guitar player who was we were looking for another Glenn Buxton, which is impossible, And this kid comes in, Jizz, and he comes in, and he's 6'3", he's got long blonde hair, he's got bell bottoms on, and makeup, and he plays like Glenn. And we just sat there and went, what? I mean, that was just sort of like came out of nowhere. And this kid can play. He's just that killer guitar player.
Where'd you find him, Alice?
He was in Nashville. And Bob Ezrin somehow found him and brought him in. We just, we were kind of like going, yeah, right. And as soon as the kid sat down and started playing, we went, wait a minute. This guy fits right into what we're doing, I can't even, it's Jazzy is his name, but he can play anything. And we said, make that more like Glenn Buxton. And he played it like Glenn Buxton. So, it was really interesting and he'll be at the Pudding, by the way, also, Jazzy. Yeah.
It's amazing. The record, it just captures that unbelievable classic vibe. The material's great. And speaking of the late Glenn Buxton, you do have a song on here that is basically a tribute to him. And did I have it right that you actually found some tracks that he had recorded that weren't used that are actually integrated into the album?
Well, bless Dennis Dunaway, because Dennis never threw anything away. Dennis taped everything, but I never, they were gone. If it was in my hands, it's gone in 10 minutes. Dennis has tapes from us when we were in high school practicing Beatles songs, So he says, I've got something that Glenn and I were working on, and he played it for us. And Bob Ezrin says, I could isolate that guitar part, and we could write a song around that guitar part. And that's what we did. So you're actually hearing Glenn on the album. Glenn actually plays on the album, and the album was dedicated to him. He was such everybody's best friend that it was very hard to even think about the band sort of getting back together without him. He was just that important to the band. And this time though, we finally just said, "Go, let's just make the album. Let's not let that get in our way." And then this guy shows up, sort of like dropped out of heaven, and it made it all work.
I know you've got always a very, very active schedule, but given the success of the record and the response to the record, has there been discussion about you doing a run of shows with the original band?
We would do one-off shows. I think we would do one-off shows. I have been touring forever. There's, the only year I took off was when I got sober. That was the only year, and of course COVID, but I tour every year. So I'm in incredible shape for 77 years old. It doesn't bother me at all just to look at a 50, 60, 70, city tour. I don't know if that's something that Neil, Dennis, or Mike would want to do, but I would love somebody to say, we're going to do London at the 100 Club, seats 100 people. Or we're going to do Detroit in a flatbed truck. And I go, oh, yeah, let's do that. Or, anything. One-off shows like that are fine, and everybody can do that easily. No problem. But you put 50 shows in a row in front of guys that haven't done it in a while, and that would, I don't know if it would be possible. I would love to do it, but I'm used to it though.
Yeah, well, and that ties into a conversation I have all the time, and you're somebody that comes up in this conversation so often because, as we know, some of these people do fall off and their skills diminish or they just physically have issues. They can't do it anymore. You mentioned at 77, and I have seen you twice, I think, this year alone. It's remarkable how good you still are, the band still is, and your drive to keep doing things and creating and making records and touring and all of that. And, I laugh about it, Alice, because every day I have a story about a band doing a farewell, and then the next day that same band announcing more shows. It's like a joke at this point. So where are you at with all of this at 77 years old? Where do you see the future? And do you ever envision yourself doing the farewell, or would you just kind of quietly go away when you decide it's over?
I don't think retirement's not even in my vocabulary. There's a group of guys out there that I call lifers. And, that's McCartney and Ringo and Mick and Keith and Ronnie, and Rod Stewart. People that are doing it not because they need to pay the bills. We could have retired 30 years ago on financially. It's the fact that that's what we do. I read an article about Bob Dylan who does 200 shows a year, and they said, well, why are you doing it? She goes, that's what I do. I write songs and I sing them in front of an audience. And I went, it's that simple. That's what I really enjoy doing. In fact, when COVID was going on, we were just getting like antsy as could be because we're used to touring at least 150 shows a year, and when all of a sudden that rug is pulled out from under you and you're going, wait a minute, it's been 18 months now. It was a shock to the system. And when I finally told the band that, okay, it's a go and we're going to start rehearsing, it was like saying we're going to Disneyland. It was like, yeah, we can do it. Everybody couldn't wait to get back on stage. And that's just part, if it's in you, if it's part of you, that's what you have to do. And that, to me, that's what I do. That's what I'll do till I can't do it anymore.
And well, that's just it. You are incredibly blessed that you can still do it at such a high level. Like, as a fan, I always say, bands should end when they can't do it that well anymore. But Absolutely. If you are still, Sammy Hagar is another one who's a good friend, 78, still remarkable what this guy can do. You at 77, what you can do, remarkable. You see Steven Tyler, even though he can't tour, he got up at the Ozzy tribute and sang Whole Lot of Love. I was like, are you kidding me? So there are these, I call them freaks, and I mean that in a good way, where it's just lifers, freaks, but they're still great at what they do. Do you, and I know you're active with golf and you love that, and I'm sure that helps keep you healthy and flexible and all of that, but do you have any physical ailments or limitations or even vocally anything you feel has changed?
I have never lost my voice because I sing in the middle range. I don't sing up there where Steven does. I don't try to get up to those. I've got guys in the band that can sing that. So, if I sing in my middle range, which I've always done, and I am there's a high point in there where I can get up there pretty good. That's not going to burn your voice out. It's when you get up there and you're doing those really, really high. Steven does that for 2.5 hours since 1970. So something's gonna, after a while, it's gonna go. It's wear and tear. That's all there is to it. It's nothing he did wrong. It's just that's the way he sings. And that's the way, it's just your body does wear down. I've been lucky enough to keep my vocals in the midsection, and so I've never really lost my voice, ever. And yeah, it really is one of those things where I always thought, if I ever gain 30 pounds, or if I don't look like the Alice I want to see on stage, I won't do it. I don't think the audience wants to see a version of Alice Cooper. They want to see Alice Cooper in full regalia. And if that ever happens where I can't play Alice the way I want to play him, because the crazy thing is, Alice is my favorite rock star. And so I designed Alice to be my favorite rock star, and I play him. I get to play the character that I designed. And what he wears, how he sings it, with the songs, he's my favorite rock star. When he becomes not my favorite rock star, then I don't want to do it anymore.
You don't want your favorite rock star to let you down. You'll be the biggest one disappointed.
Honestly, I would be disappointed in him if he kept going and couldn't do it.
Right?
Just to do it. I mean, that's not fair to the fans.
Right. Well, how about physically, though? I mean, the Alice Cooper show is very visual. You're still doing all kinds of stuff up there. Do you physically have any, I mean, even me, I'm 61. I got sciatica, this, that. I try to stay active. I started doing Pilates. I swim. I try to keep moving. And I know golf is a big thing for you, but do you have, from the stage, it doesn't appear, when I saw you earlier this year, I remember I went in your dressing room, we talked, you showed me you had shingles. And I was like, how the hell are you going to go out there and sing with the shingles? You went out and did it. I know you're a warrior. I know you go out there. It's always for the show. But do you have physical ailments, or what do you attribute the lack of appearing to not have these ailments?
I think, a lot of it had to do with the fact that I stopped everything at 42 years ago, drinking, drugs, the whole thing. And I never smoked cigarettes, which was something that probably is a big bonus. If you're happily married, I've been married 50 years to Cheryl. Cheryl is still in the show. And since she was 18 years old. And she's as good now as she's ever been. And that has a lot to do with it. When I leave home on a tour, Cheryl's with me. She's in the show. So, I know that people don't get this, but it's the perfect love affair, whereas we never get tired of each other. We push each other when it comes to, she'll say, hey, what would be really good if the lighting was uplighting on this and da-da-da. So we really know, we have that in common, that how good is this show? Can we make it better? And, she has a lot of input into the show. But at the same time, I was a long distance runner. The longer the distance was, the better I was in Arizona. In fact, at one point I think I had the state record for 20-mile run or something like that. And that has a lot to do with that. I never get tired up there. I get up there and I, do the show and I feel great.
Do you still run? Do you still run, Alice?
Oh yeah, I still do 2 miles a night. Yeah.
Do you really?
Oh yeah.
That is amazing. And your knees and your feet and your back, none of it bother you?
None. I've never had a problem with ankles, knees, hips, back, anything. And I think it's because you keep moving. Those parts just keep moving. And in fact, the only time I ever feel like 77 is if I'm sitting and watching TV too long and I get up. And all of a sudden I feel the atrophy, but
right.
On tour, you don't have time to get atrophy for anything. You're moving at all times. And it has a lot to do with not weighing a lot. I weigh 155, I think 150, and so I'm not carrying a lot of weight around. Like I said, I really, stress, I think, is more, it will kill you faster than anything. When you're stressing about everything, I don't stress about anything. I know the show's going to be great. I know my marriage is great. I know my kids are great. I know my spiritual life is great. So I am so unstressed. Maybe that's why, I look forward to doing the tours, look forward to making records.
I think you hit the nail on the head, because I'm the opposite. I'm always in a bundle of stress for whatever variety of reasons.
Yeah, but Eddie, you've got a million things going on.
So do you, though.
But you're as busy as I am, and you're depending on this person to show up for the interview. You're depending on that. Wait a minute, we got tomorrow. Tomorrow. Wait a minute. My 2/3. I done it. You have a million things going on. Where I'm kind of like, I have people that take care of a lot of that stuff.
That's true. Yeah, and you have great people around you, and that's a trend as well in your lineage and your history, is that you talk about the relationship with your wife and your family, but even beyond that, you know, as everybody knows, you've had the same manager since day one, Shep, who's amazing, and Ezrin, who did the new record, The Long History with Ezrin. So that's actually more of a common theme around you, the people around you, you know, Toby, who's been with you forever, and Kyler, who's been there for a long time, the band members who, unless they go, they've always been with you. So it's really something that extends the fabric of everything you do, it seems like.
You know, it's really true. It really is very odd that Shep and I have been together 55 years. We still don't have any contract together. We've been through the best parts and the worst parts, and we just never ever talked about ever separating. You know, as it's just, that's who we are. We're connected at the hip. And the same thing is with Ezrin. Bob Ezrin and I are so connected that it would really be hard to do an album. And I've done albums with, you know, Roy Thomas Baker and a bunch of other different people. But I've done, out of the 30 albums, I think I've done 20 with Bob Ezrin. And I can't imagine really working with anybody else. He's got the same sense of humor. He knows exactly, like, we'll get into a song and he'll say, let's not use that voice. Let's use the voice that we used on this song and that song. Oh, okay, yeah, that voice. Okay, and let's, Alice needs to be a little bit more dangerous on this song, so let's use that voice. Bob and I don't even have to talk about it. We just go in and do it, and then we look at each other and go, either that sucks or something's wrong or it's great. Let's go with that, you know. And it's always like that with the band members too. You know, the guys that have been with me now, Glenn Sobel's been with me over 10 years, you know. Ryan Roxy's been with me 25 years. Chuck's been with me 25 years. You know,
Tommy's been there a long time, right?
Tommy's been there, yeah, since Welcome to My Nightmare, Part 2. And so, like, when people connect in, they become family. And that they don't get thrown out of the only people that leave, if somebody has a chance to go on their own, I always go, yeah, do it, go do it. You know, Orianthi, you know, she said, I was going to make a record, this, and I said, do it. I said, don't, you know, use Alice Cooper show as sort of like a proving ground, you know, sort of like you're going to learn how to do staging. You're going to learn how to do this, that. You're not just going to be a band member. You're going to be part of the show, an intricate part of the show. What you do is actually going to be a part of the show. And if anybody like Kane Roberts or anybody like that has an idea of going out on their own, Kip Winger, any of those guys, I go, do it. You know, I push them out of the nest. You know, they've got Rock and Roll 101 down. You know, if they've done a couple of tours with the Alice Cooper show, they pretty much know what they're doing now. You know.
Yeah.
Now just do your own. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I was just texting with Ori because she's got this new band and they're going to play Monday at the stadium here in Vegas, and she asked me if I'd come there and intro the band, which I'm going to do. So I'm excited to see it. She's got
is that a three-piece?
Yeah, the new trio she's doing
when she was in the band, I told her, find a great drummer like this girl Annika that's just joining.
Rush.
Rush, or the girl that was in Spinal Tap. I said, you know, and then find a bass player that looks as good as you, that's a great bass player, and be the new Cream. Be the female Cream, because you're a blues player. There's nobody in your way. You know, don't try to be don't try to do pop. Don't do pop. Do blues, because that's what you do. And, you know, finally she's doing it.
Hey, I can't let you go, obviously, without talking to you about this thing you're doing, this show you're doing next year with Chris Angel, because Chris, who's a friend, was on with me yesterday for about an hour and a half, and he is shot out of a cannon about this. As you know, when Chris gets excited about something, and he is amped about it, rightfully so. I know this is something he's always wanted to do. I think just the idea of it could be incredibly cool, and I'm super excited about it. From your standpoint, what can you tell us about these shows you'll be doing next year with Chris Angel, which, by the way, 4 more were added today. which I mentioned earlier for next year, April 3 and 4, May 22 and 23 here in Vegas at the Chris's Theater inside Planet Hollywood. So, Alice, what were your thoughts when Chris approached you about doing this and what he's cooking up?
Well, I always knew that Chris always had read interviews where he said that I was his biggest influence. You know, he saw what we did on stage, and we do a limited amount of illusion, even though, you know, to an audience, it's a lot. To what he does, it's a drop in the bucket, because what he does is things that make you go, that's impossible. You know, we use it in the show to make the song more visual, you know. So when he came in, he said, I want you to come and see the show. I saw the show. And then he said, what if we combined the shows? And I went, oh, wow, that could be really interesting. Nobody's ever done that. You know, that would have been like if the Beatles joined David Copperfield or something. You know, I said, Alice Cooper and Chris Angel. I said, because his show is rock and roll.
Totally.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's the stuff he does is so insane up there, and he is in total control of it. And I really like the guy. Everybody really likes him. He's very, very, very likable, and he's very, very open to what's this going to be. It's going to be a concert, but all of a sudden the stuff starts happening in the concert. And you know, when we saw some of the visuals that he had built for this show, it's going to be spectacular. I mean, it's going to really be spectacular. And it's like nobody's ever seen anything like this.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, and I know, you know, I first met Chris about 5-6 years ago because he used to listen to me on the radio back when he lived in New York, and he reached out to me, and we were connected. We connected, and we've been friends since, and we've done some stuff together and hung out over the years. And it's funny because one of the first guys he mentioned to me when we were talking about music when we first met was you, and he was saying he calls you his father. He's like, you know, he's just so influenced by you on so many levels. And it was always like, I knew it was always like a dream of his to be able to collaborate with you in some way. So I was so happy for him that he was able to pull it off. But just as a fan, I think it's just so incredibly cool at the possibilities of what he's going to do, and of course what you're going to bring to it. For people listening, if you want to hear about this from Chris's perspective in a lot of detail, we spent an hour and a half yesterday talking about it on the air, but he's got ideas for songs and all of that, and I know it's still kind of in the early goings, but it should be great on every level.
Yeah, he pulled a, you know, he gave me an idea of what the show, he had a written kind of run through the show, and you know, that changes 75 times when you get into rehearsal. But I looked at it and I went, oh, you're pulling that song out. Okay. You know, I mean, and we never thought about doing Cold Machines, but what he has planned for that, I went, oh, it works perfectly. You know, so I'm wide open for those ideas. And he says, I want you to be wide open about musically, does that fit with this? And a lot of times it won't. And so I'll just say, listen, that song doesn't work with that. How about this song? So when we get into rehearsal, by the end of that rehearsal, we'll all be really happy with it.
Yeah, one of the songs he mentioned to me, which I always loved, which is a great song, it was You and Me. He said he wanted to put that in somehow. And I was like, wow, that would
and
be
we've
really
never
cool.
done that song on stage. You know, I mean, that song was a huge hit, and we never did it. It just didn't fit the Alice Cooper show. Only Women Bleed, the Alice Cooper show, because we can do, there's a whole thing with Cheryl on that, a ballet that goes on that is, you know, that of course ends tragically. And, but with the thing I like about Chris is we have the same sense of humor. So something really dastardly may happen up there, but you find yourself laughing because it's so over the top, you know. And I think that's exactly what I've always liked. I've always loved the idea that you're shocked at first, and then you start laughing about it because you go, I can't believe they got me, you know.
Hey, before I let you go, Alice, and we should mention again the additional shows added for Chris Angel, Alice Cooper. Welcome to Our Nightmare is the name of the show. Again, next year, additional shows April 3 and 4, May 22 and 23 now added. And I think there's a pre-sale going on because Chris leaked the code yesterday, which he said was Nightmare was the pre-sale, but I don't know when the pre-sale starts. But I don't know if you have that info. But
well, I mean, the first 3 shows went on sale, then sold out in 1 hour.
Yeah, that's what he was saying.
It was like crazy. Because if I was sitting around and somebody said Alice Cooper and Chris Angel are going to do a show together, I'd go, what? I got to see that.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of things, but I really want to see that. And, that's what makes it so appealing is the fact that we all love what we're doing. And what's going to happen when these 2 shows collide?
Well, we'll see. We'll see soon next year in Vegas. Do you have 5 more minutes for me, or do you have to go?
I've got as much as you want.
I appreciate that. I want to ask you, just in closing, about a few artists real quickly. So one who thankfully is still with us, but we watched together at Rocklahoma this year. And speaking of people who are very much descendants of you and people who look up to you, I'm talking about Marilyn Manson, who's gone through his stuff. And, you and I watched him from the wings at Rocklahoma this year. And I talked to him for a little bit after the show, and I've known him for a long time. And he appears to be a completely changed guy for the better. And I'm just wondering, as somebody who's known him for as long as you have and who you were clearly such an influence on him, your thoughts about, what you saw and what's going on now.
Off stage, he was an entirely different spirit. He was alive. He was absolutely on it. He was first time I've ever really talked to him. Because I talked to this other thing before, that I didn't understand what he was, in fact, with Johnny Depp also, him and Johnny were close friends. So we had lots of things going on, but I never quite understood where he was at all. I just didn't get it. And I don't think he did either. I think he was just winging it on every level. And it worked. But now he gets on stage and does his show and kills it. I thought the band was great. I thought he was great. He looked healthier. He looked as sick as he looks on stage. It's a healthy sick. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? His whole personality off stage is, I want to hang with this guy now.
Yeah.
There was a time when I avoided him.
Yeah.
I didn't avoid his music or his show. I just avoided him as a person. And now I look forward to seeing him. It's really a different human being. And I think that everybody has to go through that. Everybody has to go through, their growing pains in this business, where you don't know who you are for a long time. You don't know who you are off stage. You know who you are on stage, but you don't know who you are off stage. And finally, everybody gets to a point, if you're going to survive, you have to decide who you're going to be. And he decided he's going to be this person, which I really like. I really like this person. Doesn't water down his show at all. I became Christian, and it didn't water down my show, because I'm in control of the show. So, his whole personality now, I think he sings better. Everything about it is better. So I'm very impressed with Marilyn Manson, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've done some stuff with him over the years where I couldn't get a straight answer out of him. I couldn't have a conversation with him.
It was chaos.
So hard to, backstage,
it was chaos. And now it's not.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what he cultivated, and like you said, it worked for him at the time, and it was part of the whole thing, but you can't sustain that. And when I saw him in Oklahoma, he walked over to me, shook my hand, he said, "Hi, Ed, how are you?" I was like, well, is this like right then and there? It was like a different guy, just, meeting him. So seeing him again. So I'm happy for him. I'm happy he's been able to make that change in his life. Cause like
Marilyn Manson around for a long time now.
Right.
Before he wouldn't. He was limited to how long he was going to be around. Now he's opening up to a whole other thing. Now he's going to get a bigger audience, and you're going to see, he's going to let it blossom a little bit.
Yeah, totally. And two artists that sadly we lost recently. Did you have much of a history with Ozzy Osbourne? Did you guys cross paths a lot over the decades, or no?
It was a funny thing about Ozzy. We weren't in the same circles, but I always really respected Ozzy, and he really respected me. And that was the thing. When we did see each other, it was hugs and, hey, buddy, man, how you doing? Well, great, man. I love the last album. It was, and I loved his family. Jack is a guy I really, really, really admire. And his wife, Sharon, the last time I saw Sharon and Ozzy, we talked about doing a song together. And, he progressively got a little bit sicker and sicker and sicker as it went on. And that never really happened. And I was touring, he was touring, the whole thing. But it was, a total tragedy, even though it was not unexpected. I think we don't want to see that coming, even though we kind of like put it in the back of the drawer there and say, yeah, but he's still here. And that's cool. So when Ozzy, when it happened, I mean, for the first time in my career, we added an Ozzy song to the show. We added Paranoid.
Oh.
And
wow.
We did it at the O2, and we kept doing it for the next month. Every night we did it as a tribute to Ozzy. And but I mean, I got along with Ozzy really, really well. I'm surprised we didn't do more. He sang actually on Hey Stupid. And, but I mean, we should have done more things together, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising that you didn't. And lastly, a guy that I was very close with, who we lost more recently, who you toured with not long ago, you did a bunch of runs with, and that is Ace Frehley. You must have some memories and stories from Ace, even from most recently, because everybody has them.
He did at least 4 or 5 tours with us. Yeah. I mean, he opened for us for at least 4 or 5 tours, and it was a really good show because, I mean, he'd get up there and he was Ace Frehley. He played great. He did his show, went on, do the next show and on, always on. And Ace and I actually got to be pretty good friends. And he was really good friends with the rest of the band, Yeah. So when that happened, I was a bit in shock. I thought I did not really I wasn't much of a shock with Ozzy because I could see that one coming. But I guess he hit his head. Was that it?
Yeah, he fell. He had 2 falls. He fell once and he was okay, and then he took a fall down the stairs, and it really, really hit his head very, very badly multiple times. And they actually officially released that as the cause of death yesterday after the autopsy. But unfortunately, I knew they had kept it under wraps, but he had been in the hospital for about a week, and it didn't look like he was going to pull through. And I'll tell you, Alice, I had a 40-year friendship with him, and he was the first artist I signed when I worked at a label. And I got to tell you, knowing Ace and the sense of humor he had about things, he himself would find it literally ridiculously ironic that a man whose persona was that he was from another planet and battled gravity on Earth died from a fall. Yeah. You could hear Ace cackle himself at the absurdity of this right now.
Yeah, and he had that sense of humor. He had that dark sense of humor also. I was just going through my guitars upstairs, and I remember he gave me a really nice Les Paul, and it's signed at the bottom, thank you for the tours and everything like that. And everybody got along with Ace. I mean, that was the one guy, he opened the show and you knew it was going to be great because you could hear the audience. You could hear the audience. He was doing what he did best. I never did understand the Kiss breakup. I didn't get that because I wasn't that privy to what was going on within Kiss. I mean, Gene and Paul and I are really good friends. And Ace, I didn't understand the politics of what happened. But it seemed as though Ace Frehley would have gone back with Kiss. You know, it just seemed to me like that. Why would they be looking for anybody else? You know, if he was intact and playing great.
Yeah, well, you know, there's a lot of history there, and that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother time because there's
and I
wounds
never
that
asked the
don't
other
heal.
guys.
And
I never asked Paul or Gene that either, you know, because I said, "Hey, look, that's family. That's in family," and I don't know anything about that.
Right.
But it seemed as though that would have been a good move, you know. It's because who doesn't love the original guys? I mean, you know, that's always the thing. If you can't play, different. I mean, if you can't handle it and can't play, it's a different thing. But Ace could play everything, you know.
Yeah, and he's another guy that the lights thankfully went on for him about 13, 14 years ago when he stopped drinking and became a changed guy, you know. So that was another theme with him as well.
That's right. You know, anybody that's still around had to do that. Anybody that's out there touring or making records or you know, functioning in the business and doing well, all had to come to that moment of going, okay, this is killing me. If I want to keep doing this, I've got to stop.
Oh, yeah. I talk to Glenn Hughes about that all the time. I say to Glenn, I said, like, if you read Glenn's book, every time Glenn has a birthday or releases a record or comes on with me, I'm like, I tell the audience, I'm like, we would not be talking to Glenn Hughes right now if Glenn did not change his ways 30, 40 years ago, because he was unbelievably off the rails. So, yeah, I mean, it's, I've been lucky. I've been in this business my whole life. I never had issues with alcohol or drugs, thankfully. But for those that do, and all the heroes that I love, yourself included, I'm so grateful that the change did happen, because we're still getting great stuff from so many of these artists that would not be with us if they didn't change their ways.
Cheryl says, you know, with all the death, with all of the disease, with all the wars, what kind of a world are we going to leave Keith Richards? Which is true, right?
It's so true. What a great way to end. What a great note to end on. It's just because it's so true. It's awesome. Alice, you know, again, always great to talk to you. Thank you so much for the time. Well, it was great to bring you a little bit of an archival interview there from last November with Alice Cooper. We thought the timing on that would be good, given that the show that he is doing with Chris Angel has its first show happening on March 6th in Vegas at Planet Hollywood. They've added some shows since that interview was done, and you can check your local listings. It is a limited engagement, but if you'd like to catch Chris and Alice, and I can't wait to see one of those shows myself, by all means, check your listings and get out to Vegas and try to see it. I unfortunately won't be able to go to the opening shows because I've got speaking shows in Ohio, but there are other shows in April and going forward. I hopefully plan to catch at least one of those. So thanks to Alice. Thanks to John Taylor. If you just tuned in, you missed John Taylor of Duran Duran and the Power Station. Grab anything you may have missed on the app. Thanks for listening, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. And I am back tomorrow with an all-new Trunk Nation. Some of your emails in the mailbag, Satch Vai, and the world premiere of their new song. We'll talk to you then.
The Bonfire with Big J. Okerson and Robert Kelly.
I don't weigh myself. I don't know what I weigh right now. I guess it'd be 260.
I weigh 230 right now. I weigh 230. But you're a big guy. But like, do you want to get like abs again, or do you? No, right?
Again.
Wrong choice of words.
The Bonfire, weeknights at 5 p.m. Eastern on Faction Talk, or anytime on the SiriusXM app.
Hip-hop's legacy lives in its many voices.
Here we go.
Celebrate Black History Month with an exclusive SiriusXM channel honoring rap royalty, Queens of Hip-Hop.
We could be the king, but watch the queen count.
The most powerful female MCs.
It's Cardi B. This is Nicki Minaj. Just making a say. I'm a savage.
It's the queen of the South, Big Lotto.
This is Little Kim, the Queen Bee.
Yo, this is the Queen Latifah.
This is Roxanne Shante.
The Queens of Hip-Hop, year-round on the SiriusXM app and for a limited time on Channel 105.
Hey, I'm Mike Slater. My dad passed away at the age of 63. He was in great health. Was out of nowhere. Had a stroke. And super hard, obviously, for the whole family. But my dad had